Hello and welcome. This is Melanie Daly, and with me is Father Don. Hello, Father.
Hey, Melanie. Good to see you, and good to be with our wonderful group here today. We're going to be talking about Journey to New Life, a great ministry here in Kansas City. Our guests here Upon This Rock are Kathleen Kennedy and Susie Rolling. I'm going to have you, Kathleen, just introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and Susie will do the same, and then we'll talk about Journey to New Life.
Very good. Thanks for having me and my coworker this afternoon. I am originally from Kentucky and came up here to go to Rockhurst College. So I'm back on the campus where my first address was actually on campus here at McGee Hall. I am employed with Journey to New Life, and it's more than a job. It's an absolute fantastic ministry, working with people coming out of incarceration situations. I'm the director there, and I'm going to turn it over to my coworker, Susie, to introduce herself.
Hi there. I am Susie Rolling. I'm originally from Kansas City as well and have worked here on the Truce Corridor for almost 20 years, and real excited to be here. Very happy to speak about reentry in Kansas City, as is a topic that I think a lot of people don't know about, and if they knew about, would really help us and be invested in it. So thanks for having us.
Sure. And one of the things, and we talk about, we don't know much about this, so I'm going to ask you some simple questions along the way too, just because many of us are just so naive. I was talking with, maybe it was the two of you, and I was talking about that I thought prison was a place for people to dry out from drugs, and either you or somebody else said, no, it's kind of the opposite. Mm-hmm. So those sorts of things we don't really know. Even sometimes the words that we use, incarcerated, or we'll toss out other terms like a felon or a parolee or an ex-con, and those may not always be the right terms to use. I know that in our social ministries of those that come to the food pantry, we call them our clients. It's a little more dignified than saying
our friends.
Our friends, yeah. So that poor person who comes to us for help. There are other ways in which we can do that. So, Susie, if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you to talk a little bit about Journey to New Life and how it came about. I suspect before it existed, there were some other groups that were doing similar things, and it evolved to this.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for asking. So Sister Rose McClarney, who is one of our founding board members, founding board president, Georgia Walker, who is one of our founders, and she was our executive director up until March of 2022 when she died suddenly last March. So we've been through just a lot of transition. And then our third founder is Rita Flynn, who is still with us and is the director of our emergency assistance at 3120 Troost. So these three guys have worked. Rita was a parole officer for years. Yep. Georgia and Sister Rose had worked in another transitional living for women coming out of prison. All three of them worked at Catholic Charities at the same time, some longer than others. So what they found is that there were some funding restrictions and funding barriers at their former places of employment that said, you can serve X person, but not X person. So if this person has this specific charge, they don't qualify for our funds. And so these three, I call them rogue women, like similar to Sister Berta and Sister Creta said, every human being, every human life has value and is worthy of food, shelter, employment, opportunity, community, love, hope. So they started Journey to New Life for people that were reentering society that they felt were falling through the cracks. And so it was to capture everyone that potentially other social service agencies or government programs were unable to serve. So Journey to New Life said, no, we're here. We are your neighbor, your friend, and let's live in community together.
And figure out some of these things, like you say, when we're falling through the cracks. And if you have a lot of limitations that are placed on you when you are receiving grants or receiving support, and you want to do more, and that more can be done, that's a great thing for them to be able to find a way to do that. Susie, you had mentioned Sister Berta and Sister Corrine, and for those viewers or listeners who may have forgotten who they are, not that they should ever be forgotten in Kansas City. I mean, they were wonderful
giants.
Yes, yes. And you had you did a little work with them back in the past.
Yeah, so I worked with them from 2004 to 2014. And I said she took my 20s, most of my 30s, and she is no longer at Operation Breakthrough, but still occupying my 40s, this woman,
Wow.
Sister Berta. Yeah. Sister Karita died in March of 2021. Sister Berta is still alive and lives in the Waldo area.
Wonderful ladies. I think that their religious order was actually up in Iowa, if I remember correctly. They came
Des Moines.
In Des Moines. Mm-hmm. They were in Kansas City, and I forget what was going on in the church at the time, but it had to do with the Vatican II and the aftermath of Vatican II. And if I remember right, they opened up a gas station downtown, didn't they, to get started? And then they saw the needs of all the people around. And decided
so they opened
to stay.
up their home to neighbors of theirs who were working parents that needed childcare. And so Sister Berta and Sister Karita said, well, you know, a need right in front of me. Sure, I can keep your kids. We have a basement. We'll hang out down there. And then, it's 10 kids turned into, they serve over 800 children daily at Operation Breakthrough at 31st and Troost, all the way from infancy to 18 with a variety of different programs.
On Troost Avenue, we know that an awful lot of people are in need, and from the early stages of life to the difficult stages of life to end of life. And Kathleen, I know that for those who are going through a journey to new life, and anybody who has gone through a period of incarceration, when they come out, and there might be a little prep before they come out. I think probably prison systems are getting better about that, but there are incredible obstacles and roadblocks that people face, and you all are desiring to respond to. What are some of those roadblocks, and what are some things that you deal with?
Father Don, remembering that most of the time when people are incarcerated, most folks were pretty broke before they ever went in. Yeah. And it's not uncommon for us to be working with people coming out after 10, 20, sometimes even 30 years. So just fast forward. I mean, think about your own self, and it's almost like you're walking into a time warp. They don't know how to access gasoline at a pump. They don't know, even cell phones, things like that are just so very different. There's so much cutoff that takes place. People's family systems are often very broken. Some people, it's not uncommon for them to have gotten no visits from family members. Either the distance was too far or the family relationships were severed. So people are coming out. So there's a whole host of just concrete things, such as identification. Who are you? That Journey to New Life helps them with. I've had clients.
Kathleen, how would that happen if someone has no identification? What would be the first stages to reestablishing that?
Sure. So if they will come out with a prison ID, but you can't get work with a prison ID, and so they need state identification. So we have to first ascertain which state they were born in to find out how easy or difficult the process will be. If they were born in the state of Missouri, it's very easy compared to the other states. Some state forms have to be notarized, so there's a whole other level of things there that most of us wouldn't think about. ID is just one piece. We have clients, no clothes. It's cold, very cold today. Today's January the 31st, I believe. It's I think the temperature might be 18 degrees outside. People we see every day coming in, no coats, shoes falling apart or borrowed. You'll hear a lot, well, I borrowed it from somebody else at the halfway house. We have people that are unsheltered homeless who have recently been released from prison. Everything you can imagine. In our residences, we have 2 women's residences. We literally pick them up at the bus stop. They would have no way of even being able to navigate their way to our 2 women's houses where they will stay to get that good start and can stay a handful of months to really be able to not set people up to fail, but to be there for them every step of the way in coming back. The newness, there's not a bit of it that doesn't. There are people who go into the restroom to take their prison grays off, just to literally. Wow. I've had clients where they've left. They say, "Can I please change pants, change shirts, because I need to move beyond the last 25 years of my life." And we say, "Please do, absolutely."
Something else that I really want to mention here, and this is kind of just educating the public on how our government systems affect. So the largest line item in our Missouri state budget is the Department of Corrections. Last week, we saw a gentleman that did over 32 years, and he came to our door in 2 pair of shoes that didn't fit, a long sleeve t-shirt, and it was freezing outside, no coat given to him. And so there is a reentry portion of that budget in Missouri. What happened to this young man and so many others, this man and so many others, right? So literally when people are coming through the door, they can be coming from a halfway house, but a lot of times they're coming straight from the facility or straight from the bus stop where they walk from the Greyhound to 31st Street because they're not about to get in on a bus that's in an enclosed space again, right? So it's just barriers that we don't even think about. But before, I consider myself a woke, educated social justice activist. Before I started working at Journey to New Life, I just assumed when people got out of prison, they had their needs, clothes that fit, hygiene products. That is not the case. And if I didn't know it, Kansas City certainly doesn't know it. And so we're here, just grateful to be here on this podcast and speak to as many businesses, groups, anyone that'll listen, just so people know about it, we can make a change.
Speaking of assumptions, Father Don said something before we started talking about prison itself. Like we made an assumption that that's a place to quote unquote dry out. Yeah. So what goes on in prisons? Like you said, no, it's quite the opposite, actually.
I'll jump in and say that that's correct. There is there's a huge shortage of guards across the country. And so they have very great difficulty getting staff. It was already bad, and it's gotten worse over the last couple of years with the worker shortage just in the nation. And so I've had, before I came to Journey to New Life, I worked at the Bishop Sullivan Center, also on the Truce Corridor at 39th. And I had clients that were former COs, former guards who were bringing drugs into the prison to supplement their wage. Does that excuse that behavior? Of course not. But those are some of the realities. And as they talk about, everyone's got an angle. And so everyone quickly sums up what their angle is going to be while in prison. Prison life is, especially if you're talking a medium or maximum security prison, is something most of us wouldn't even dream of. We work with a lot of people coming out, and they just say it's kind of like going to war. They just don't talk about it. They say, you don't want me to talk about that with you. It's too painful. It's too ugly. It's a scary place.
And to kind of bring it to the policy piece of it all, it's real intentional what we're doing here in Missouri, right? So we have, I think there's 26, I'll have to fact check, men's prisons and 2 women's prisons. Well, they're, all of them but one are in these rural communities, small rural communities where there's a prison, a Walmart, a Dollar General, a high school, and maybe a grocery store. So if you're living there, you got to work at one of the places, right? And so a qualification to be a prison guard is a high school diploma, but they make exceptions. So it's a lot of times there's a power struggle, and the wages that we, like Kathleen mentioned, that we pay the COs with a family are not living wages.
And Susie, you had mentioned the state of Missouri, and I understand there are about nearly 50,000 inmates in the state of Missouri.
People, yes.
Yeah, people that are, here I am saying.
That's okay, Father Don, I'm here for you.
People that are residents. And the United States of America has the highest incarcerated rate of incarceration in the entire world.
That is intentional. It is a profit-making business. And for us to say that it's unintentional, that is fake news. That's a lie.
There's so much we could do in terms of restorative justice. And that's, we keep hope and we keep working towards a better day. Indigenous cultures have used healing circles and other types of things for many, many years. Another of my former jobs, I've had many as a social worker. I was the restorative justice coordinator for Catholic Charities up in the St. Joe area. We had a reparations board bringing together victim, offender, and community to address and repair the harm that the crime caused. And that's really where it's at. There are other models around the world that we need to look to as an example, as well as some things in the U.S. But typically we have the adversarial system, the British model. Somebody's guilty, somebody's, completely guilty, and someone's completely innocent, and we're going to pay. I don't know that we want to drift about the execution that's scheduled for February 7th. Well, that would be another example.
Yeah, we'll bounce around a lot, but I think we'll come back to that, and we'll go off on a few tangents, don't we, Melanie? Sure. This is the way that we work. But anyway, we eventually circle back.
Yeah.
But I do just want to talk about a couple more of these statistics. That the national average is about 68% of those that are formerly incarcerated that go back to prison. But Journey to New Life gives a whole different sense to that. Is it less than 5% that you work with?
It's less than 10%. And those who go back, it's usually self-harm, that they've gone back to a rural community and they're locked up again due to drug issues.
Yeah.
The other piece that I don't know how much we want to get into the weeds on, but if you have a sex offense, we actually work with that population, sex offenders, and the few times that there is a return to prison, it's for failure to register. So that's a new felony, and you then become incarcerated for that. So that's a whole other thing that we could spend other time on. That
Sure, no, and I think we should, and I hope we get to it. But Susie, you'd also mentioned the cost of some of this. So it's awfully expensive to have someone behind bars, and it's not so expensive.
It's expensive, and there isn't like top of the line programming going on inside the prison. There's not top of the line medical care going on inside the prison. The staff's not getting paid well. It's the largest line item in our state budget. Where is the money going? I don't have the answer to that, but that should be a question for every taxpayer in Missouri.
Thank you. Yes, yeah.
Another thing that you mentioned about the 68% of folks that go back to prison nationwide and the less than 10% with Journey to New Life. I think it's a real important soundbite that our entire community hears is the work of Journey to New Life is not work that just the people working there, volunteering there can do. It's the work of the entire community. When we take responsibility for our neighbor, for one another, we can't heroize this work. What we are doing as an organization of providing people with basic needs, and why is that exceptional? So every person in this community is worthy of food, housing, clothing, a good education, a support system, love, and hope. But we as a society, not just Kansas City, only certain people deserve those values, right? So we're saying at Journey to New Life, no human being doesn't deserve that. No human being is left behind. No matter what you've done, you are a living, breathing soul and deserve hope and love.
Absolutely. And Kathleen, as we're talking about these different roadblocks, some of them are just basic needs in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need housing, we need food, we need employment, we need education. Need financial support. But you've mentioned also something I hadn't thought of is just reunification with family. So sometimes things happen in a family system while someone's away. What are some of the stories about that?
It's probably one of the greatest areas of pain as well as hope for individuals. I think we see it most in the women that come in and are living with us at Peace House and Journey House. They may not be in a position, maybe the state has terminated their parental rights. Maybe not, but other family members have literally had to, of course, stepped in or maybe had them due to problems before they ever got locked up. But you'll hear the lament and you'll hear the hope. One of their highest goals in life is to be reconnected with their children, their parents, their brothers and sisters. It's unbelievably painful, and it drives them to do good. It drives them to keep that hope that they will one day be reunified, even if they can't be full-time parents. Everybody's going to benefit when you can help people to reconnect with their family systems. We're all part of the human family, but we're also part of our family of origin. And when that's cut off, the pain that causes in people's lives, nobody wins. And when you can reunify, everybody benefits.
I'm so glad you bring up the topic of family of origin, Kathleen. That's something that we have no control over. I had no control over that I was born into privilege. From way before I was born, I had privilege, right? So there are certain risk factors that happen at birth that never happened to Susie Rowling. Mm-hmm. If I were to commit a crime today, I would spend very little time in prison because of my resources and my family connections. The same rules in our society do not apply to everyone. So not all, a lot of folks who are incarcerated were born into families of origin without resources, born into poverty, born into families that suffer with substance abuse. So I grew up learning a life of privilege, education, and justice. That's not the life that a lot of people lead. So our prison system, our prison system, our justice system, whatever you'd like to call it, our injustice system, a lot of it is a product of poverty and how as a nation, we're not united in everyone receiving similar resources. And that's the essence of Operation Breakthrough. It's not that the kids at 31st and Troost deserve more than the kids at Blue Valley North High School. No, they deserve equal, right? So if a kid comes in with a speech impediment, they deserve speech therapy. Well, if you have a single mother working 2 jobs on the bus, she can't leave in the middle of her workday to take her kid to speech therapy, so they provide it on site. So we're trying to level the playing field, and we've totally missed the boat on our incarceration system if that is the goal.
Upon This Rock as a podcast, we do, and we will get into some pretty tough topics, some difficult situations. We want kitchen table discussions to be going on, but about things that are really challenging to our society and what it means to be a citizen of a community today, a Catholic for many of us, and what difference does that make? What difference do the Catholic social teachings make? Jesus had said that the poor will be with us always. We've heard the terminology that the poor have poor ways. There are just a lot of things that we have to deal with and seek to overcome. Kathleen, you had mentioned a death penalty. We won't get into this right now, but the Catholic Church has flip-flopped on their issue of the death penalty throughout the last century, and just really looking at how we dignify people. Right, there are a lot of things that are challenging, but and Melanie and I will go into this a little bit more at another time, but just how we can have these constructive conversations around how we can do our little part in our little world to try to make things a little bit better in the Catholic community in Kansas City to help out as we can. And I think that Journey to New Life is one of the ways in which Kansas Cityans can certainly do so. But Kathleen, I want to come back to this just again for a lot of us that might not be tracking it as clearly as we should. So you mentioned Peace House, and you've mentioned Journey House, and those are houses for women. But Journey to New Life is way beyond women. It's men and women. But tell us, from the day that someone leaves the prison, they walk out of those doors, does someone pick them up, or if someone doesn't pick them up, they get on a bus? How do they know to come to Journey to New Life, and how do they get settled at Journey House or Peace House? Sure.
So that is part of their home plan. So they literally, that conversation happens several months out. The information is, we work with the staff inside the prison, letting them know to get the word out about what we're about. And then the things like the interviewing and the information that's shared about what we do, so that people can make an informed decision about whether or not this is something they want to consider. And then we interview. We form relationship. Okay. In life, it's all about the relationships, those positive relationships.
You matter.
That's exactly right. And so when someone, the plan is for someone to go to Peace House and Journey House at any one time, we have a capacity of 34 beds for people leaving prison. They have their own room. We've learned that that's really important. 6 women living together doesn't work out very well, but, and again, giving them their space, lots of challenges, especially in the early days. But you're right, Father Don, we literally meet them at the bus stop. Both of the residences are located in zip code 64109 in the heart of Midtown, Kansas City, Missouri, both just east of Troost. And once they're there, the first day and a half, it's just allowing them to breathe, feel the acceptance and the love. They're taken shopping so they can purchase clothing that they choose, not the fancy. We take them to Walmart, what we can get the biggest bang for our buck. Most of them have a long list of conditions of parole that they must meet. So we must, if we're going to help someone and not set them up to fail, we have to make sure they're in compliance with the system. Many are in drug treatment. They go to Alt Care, which is one of our collaborators. And we want to just make sure in every single way we address physical health, mental health, dental care. Nothing like going to a job interview. I had a client one time in the middle of his interview, a tooth fell out. He came back and shared with me the horror of that story the next day. That's just an example. We don't do that in-house. We partner in the community. Whatever we do, we want to do well, and we want to partner with collaborative agencies that treat people with the same dignity and respect that we adhere to. That is our value.
Kathleen, you want to touch on our peer model too, which is new in our country and something that we are using, and it's going very well.
We have 8 staff that we have 2 24-hour residences. Of the 8 staff, 7 have lived experience. God makes no junk. All of us need to find our place along this road to use our gifts and talents. Huge. I am in awe and admiration every day of my coworkers who have been in the trenches, been in cuffs, gone before the judge, got taken away. Sometimes one of our workers, she was in federal and state court, far removed, 6 states over from where her family was. And when they go through those what are seemingly insurmountable things and come out on the other side, I learn every day from them. We all do. So that peer model is people who have lived experience are then going to be able to be there to help and support people and to be a role model. Not to judge, but this is what it looks like. And we're here for you unconditionally. You stumble and fall, you get up again, and you're among family to help you propel you forward.
4 of those 8 staff live inside the residence. So we have 2 residences. So 2 graduates live in one and 2 graduates live in the other house. And so they form a real sense of community. Sometimes the house managers have done time with some of the residents coming in. We also have case managers that function a lot like social workers. So one case manager is a social worker and the other case manager has lived experience partnered with education and mentoring. She is a case manager and doing awesome. She's gone through our program. She went through treatment. She been incarcerated, I think 5 different times. She is awesome. And imagine getting out and seeing her. Oh, okay, I can do this. Yeah. I can do this. Look at her.
Yeah.
You know, in spiritual direction, we have directors and directees. We have spiritual companions that walk together with us. But it sounds like in your peer program, it's a similar thing that you have people who have been where the others are now, and they're guiding them and giving them the wisdom of their experience and just trying to help out. That's great.
And it's a tall ask of us. I mean, that time that our staff spent incarcerated or spent in their addiction, and that was a hard time in their life. Yeah. So asking them to do this work and also stay healthy in it is a big ask. That was a traumatic part of their life that they're referencing on a daily, trying to impact others' lives. So it seems like, oh gosh, what the perfect job for them. it's a taller ask of them than I know I personally realize, not having that lived experience. Yeah. So they are phenomenal. And really the rock and the heart of our agency are these peer specialists.
And in these houses, you are forming family, at least for a time. We often talk about belonging and community and family and how important that is. I remember my work in the urban core 25, 30 years ago and working with kids in gangs. They're wanting to be a part of something. Everybody wants to belong to something. And so there are rites of passages that are given through that. But anyway, it's wonderful that we can have some positive belonging that happens in those houses and good things. We both shared some compelling stories. Are there any other stories you might want to share about some of the clients that you've worked with?
Sure. So I've been doing this many, 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 many moons. So there are so many that I look up to, again, referencing that there is no throwaway person. There is nobody on this planet without gifts and talents. And if you look for it, it's right there. So I'm thinking of one individual. When I would work with them, the humility jumps out. I worked specifically before coming to Journey at the Bishop Sullivan Center on Employment Services. So sometimes people would demand jobs they couldn't meet the expectation, and that's just because they weren't reality-based. They'd been away for a while. I remember this one guy that I was working with, and this is the opposite story. He came in very humble, willing to take anything to get started. He could speak his truth, and he was what we call the real deal. You could see that he wasn't just blowing smoke. And so this construction company out South Kansas City gave him a shot. We do 3-month and 1-year follow-up. So at 3 months, I called him to check to how everything was going. We always keep the door open, too, if they need something prior to. We helped him with work supplies and things he needed to get started initially. 3 months out, I'm talking to him. He is running a crew out in the region, so even out of the area, had gotten permission from his parole officer. He had been locked up for 30 years when I had met him because I did preparation for leaving as a Department of Corrections of the state of Kansas volunteer. Yeah. And you couldn't write this. He had a crew. He had the company credit card, the truck, all of those things that you would not give to someone that did not earn your trust. Okay, so fast forward, I'm on the 1-year call to him. He's in Minneapolis, Minnesota on corporate training. He had worked even that much high up, all after 30 years in prison, 1 year out. I say, don't let another human being set a bar for you. And there's many others. There's another gentleman who he went in at a very young age and did 20 years flat. He got out and he was working on the back of a trash truck, his initial job. Humble, again, you see this humility within a very short time. And he had goals and aspirations. He is now a lead mediator, bringing together victim, offender, and crime, specifically an expert in working with youth in the schools. And he was locked up for 20. He's been out less than 5 years. I want to see my sisters and brothers on this planet thriving. If we tell people you're no good, there's no good in you, you're just going to take from society. I have been just I'm of the greatest conviction that is just not true. So giving people the support and the space, having the ears to listen, the eyes to see. That's why almost 40 years later, I remain as a social worker, and probably to the grave. This is a gift to be able to get to do this. And I can pay bills because I have a salary. This is a gift I don't ever want to take for granted.
Those are powerful stories, and I know that they do impact you a lot. And just with your backgrounds that you have been in other social ministries prior to being with Journey to New Life. And Melanie, as you know, we're having David Brooks on campus next month, and he's written a book. He's written several books. One of them was most popular as Social Animal, but a recent one called Road to Character. And it talks about how we are driven and drawn through different virtues. Some people seek a career We have resume virtues that get us there, and other people seek a vocation. They're not so much ego-driven, but soul-driven. You are very soul-driven. You are committed to this kind of work, but it's beyond work. It's a way of life. It's a commitment to a community. It's a commitment to humanity and to living. It's a vocation. You're responding to a call. I want to ask you maybe just a little bit about how you got from the past work, Operation Breakthrough, to what you're doing now, or Bishop Sullivan Center to what you're doing now, and that location there on Troost Avenue around 31st Street, and how the many partners there work together because they share that idea of wanting to make the world just a little bit better. And aren't we blessed here in Kansas City to have this?
Sure. That was quite the
that
question.
was a lot. Well, you can just take it wherever you want, Susie.
Listen,
Yeah.
I am taking this from one of the former videos that Operation Breakthrough did. They do an annual video every year, but we heard a reporter refer to 31st and Troost as the intersection of race and poverty.
Okay.
And we thought, no, that is not what it is. It is a line that brings people together. It's a gathering space, not a dividing line. So we said it is the intersection of hope and possibility. Because the folks in this community, they are very just so rich in spirit and hope and kindness. And I have had the pleasure of working at both of these agencies and feel the safest I've felt in my entire life in this community with the people that we have the opportunity to work with and serve. So the myth of Troost Avenue kind of being this dangerous place, and I have experienced the opposite. I have a biracial family, and I feel much safer at 31st and Troost than I do in kind of the whiter parts of Waldo. So I, as a person that is with different races, it makes me feel more safe as a woman and as a mother. So there's a lot of gentrification and development going on Troost Avenue, and we, along with other agencies, have been approached. You sell our space and we'll get this high dollar. Well, what we say to the developers, and I won't name anyone specific, although I could, we say is, no, we are here to stay, and we welcome you to our community. We welcome you, and we want to be your neighbor, but we're not going anywhere. So if you want to be our neighbor, hire our clients and pay them a living wage, let's figure out how we can be together in a community. But we're not doing this white flight thing. We're not doing that. We are here, and our presence makes the community stronger.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's isn't it, the heart of Kansas City there, and I love that idea of the intersection of hope and possibility. And
I didn't come up with it, Sister Berta. Well, I'll quote Sister Berta.
That's a good one to quote. Kathleen, what about yourself? You too are following a vocation to do this.
Sure, and referencing Rockhurst campus. I'm from Western Kentucky in the country, and came up here to go to college, and my first address was on 53rd at Lewis B. McGee Hall. And so Troost will always have this place in my heart from the very, very, very beginning of my time in Kansas City, thinking I was passing through to head to Philadelphia. But life is what it is, and I ended up staying here.
Well, what awaited you in Philadelphia?
As a young person, you just have an idea where you need to be.
Oh, I see.
My plan was to just have a short stint. I had no ties to Kansas City, and I wasn't.
You weren't an Eagles fan or anything like that. You were going to go east. Yes,
this
gotcha.
time of year. No, no. I had just had this what I thought was an affinity to the East Coast and needed to be in Philadelphia, and I never even made it. Although I did go once to visit. But my point is that the Troost corridor was my first home.
Right. In
Kansas City. Fast forward, I never drifted very far, but I literally am a director of this beautiful reentry program right on Troost. It's a God thing for me. It's bigger than me. And so I'm just grateful.
Will you say just a little bit about the building you're in? It's kind of a beautiful building. It has a little history there. Doesn't it? As a retail shop or something? Or
Sure.
maybe some of the buildings around there that are.
So our
also
storefront
retail.
at 3120 Troost was the first, I believe it's FW Woolworth.
Sure.
I know I have the Woolworth right, in Kansas City. The year was 1926, and it remained a Woolworth until closing in 1964. I'm a history junkie, and so that was, I just ate that up. I thought that was something else. The building is in pretty solid shape for as old as it is. They don't make things like they used to. The housing stock, the storefront, it's in, as Susie said, we are grateful for our building and its location, and being in partnership with the other social service providers and the people who live and work. And this is their home. And we want to be part of that fabric, making everything stronger in a partnership with everyone, with all the other providers.
All right.
And some of our biggest supporters in our ministry and other nonprofits is the Catholic Church. So our parish is like St. James at 39th and Troost, which is one of our biggest supporters. St. Teresa's Little Flowers, St. Thomas More does. They just adopted our both residences for Christmas, and thousands of dollars worth of gifts and items for the house, visitation. So the Catholic community has been so good to Journey to New Life, and we're grateful for them.
An awful lot of good, great, wonderful people in Kansas City that just
That's right.
wanted to help out. And we'll look at maybe some ways that they can help out. But before we get to that, Susie, you had mentioned the idea that, I'll say it from Rockhurst perspective, that we have a saying that we are in the city for good. We're here for the long run, and we're here for the betterment. And it sounds like you're in the city for good too, and right there at the very core, the epicenter of need in the city. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Something else that as our city is uniting on this Chiefs victory, and we're headed to the Super Bowl, and Kansas City is the absolute best. I don't want to be a downer, but we need our entire city to have this much vigor and excitement over, homelessness, the rising number of homicides, the where we are at. Sister Berta used to tell this to volunteers way back in the 80s. We're 7 minutes north of the plaza. Just keep driving to get people to come volunteer at Operation Breakthrough. She was the queen of, she was a nun, so white lies weren't anything. They were exaggerations. She is a nun. She is. And so some of extreme poverty that happens at 31st and Troost, or even east of 31st and Troost. So it really is, at least less than 9 minutes from the wealthiest parts of our city. And so as we unite over Mr. Hamlin that died on the field and then was brought back to life, a couple weeks ago. The entire world prayed for this man. It was a beautiful thing. That same day in Missouri, we injected a drug into a person and stopped their heart from beating. So we are missing the boat somewhere. So I hope this podcast and other things can unite our community the way Patrick Mahomes does. Kathleen and I are not Patrick Mahomes. We're not as cute. We're not as funny. We're not as athletic. But that is what this city needs. If the folks that live, 9 minutes from Operation Breakthrough or from Journey to New Life understood what was going on, that problem wouldn't exist. I do believe it's an education issue.
As Alvin
There's
Brooks
good
says,
people all over the city.
Sure. Yeah. Alvin Brooks says that we've come quite a far ways, but we've got a whole lot farther to go. And we can celebrate what has happened. But boy, we need to keep trucking along, and we need to keep trying to improve things. What are some of the volunteer opportunities that lie before us right now? And I suppose there are things just as simple as hygiene products, hair products, backpacks, I understand. But there are also some bigger things. And as Susie and we kind of bat around too, there's some real systemic issues that we will also try to dive into. But just from the basic volunteer needs, what comes to mind, Kathleen?
Sure. So one quick thing, not to digress, but one way to bring together opportunities to sit down in fellowship, disparate lives coming together, is to attend one of our Journey Over Lunch events. So every month we have an event. We try to limit it so people can maybe swing by during a lunch period if they have some time off, to hear firsthand the work that we're doing from people who have been the recipients of that work and are now doing the work as employees. So that would be the first thing. If someone really doesn't know much, it's a great educational tool. Everybody benefits.
And we have our staff there and some residents. And so we all break bread together. And the folks that we have the opportunity to serve oftentimes look just like us. So when you're eating the same delicious food from Costco and we look alike, the barrier breaks down quick.
We've also spent time talking about the residences, the women's residences, but 75% of our clients are men. Oh. So we have at our storefront at 3120 Truce an emergency assistance department, and it's really the gateway. And Father Don, when you talk about the basic needs that we could use the support for, that would be things like backpacks, shoes, clothes, ones that you wouldn't put in the trash, but that you might wear yourself or give to a friend or family member. So that would have some life in it. Wallets, basic kinds of needs, sleeping bags. We have our sisters and brothers out here sleeping on the street. Those are always very helpful. Yeah. Susie, help me out. Sure. I'm trying to think.
Yep. So also when folks, we have rapid rehousing programs. So it's a reentry case management program. So we have very limited dollars right now, but we're hoping to expand on that, where someone comes in through emergency assistance, gentlemen typically, staying in one of the halfway houses. We're going to connect them with a reentry case manager that addresses all domains of life, from life skills to budgeting to assistance with employment through our employment program, connection to different community resources, and we help them get in housing, and then we continue to meet with them. So when we get into housing, there are things like, utensils, microwave, stuff like that. We don't take used furniture anymore because we're partnering with Flourish Furnishings, but bedding, all kinds of things, that everything you need to get yourself started. And so I think Kathleen hit on this earlier, the family support system. We are only as resilient as we are. We only kind of know what we know. And so sometimes when our clients are cut off from their family, that may be the best situation for the family. So it's we really want to hold compassion and love for everyone, the family unit and our client, trying to reestablish and kind of give everyone that value. But most of the time, not all, most of the time, the folks that go through our program don't have family support. Right. And so if you've got family support, you especially coming to 3120 through our emergency assistance services, you may not need those services of ID, clothes, hygiene. You've got, a mom or dad or a sister or brother that's letting you stay with them, and they're going to help you get on your feet. But we don't, most of our clients don't have that opportunity because of a burned bridge, or potentially their brothers living and surviving in poverty, and they're a fourth generation family in poverty. So it's just kind of hard to tell.
But you get a lot of mileage out of the donations that you receive, and it's a wonderful thing.
We.
Yeah.
And we've got the most amazing volunteers that organizes all these in-kind donations, because when someone goes down to our basement and looks for clothing and hygiene and stuff that they need, we want that to be an empowering experience. What is it that what are you looking for today? What, do you want to look in the men or women's section? What type of hygiene do you need? If there's something here that we don't have, we'll tell our volunteers, they'll keep an eye out for it. It's, some of our volunteers, they tease that they're personal shoppers, and they said, but what an honor, what an honor to just walk with people as they open their bright, beautiful eyes to a new world full of hope.
Okay.
And if someone wanted to stop in for Journey over lunch, is it at a set time each month?
And all that's on our website.
Okay.
And we can, and I should have brought the flyer and I could just say it right now.
It's noon to
okay.
1:30.
Okay.
And it's one day in the middle of the week. So we have that scheduled out for all of 2023.
Yes.
The other thing is we welcome people to come in and check us out at 3120, see what we do. If you're not sure, come on by. You don't need an appointment. We'd love to see people. People are always coming by, bringing donations. Susie says the downstairs is really huge, and it's very well organized because of the blessings of our wonderful volunteers who keep that looking good. And as one of our volunteers, we had a meeting last week, and she was like, a donation had just come in, and this person came downstairs needing that item, and she knew she knew exactly the little nook and cranny that it was stored in where the rest of us would have never been able to find it. But they're in the know. They know where to find things. It's very well organized, but in addition, they know all the little extras. So I was like, wow, something else.
There's something interesting that I believe was on the website that it shows that the average cost to assist someone in the journey to new life is about $3,000 a year, whereas the average incarceration is about 8 times that.
That's
year.
correct. Yeah, we're the best bang for your buck. And when people come out and they don't reoffend, everybody's going to benefit. They're going to contribute. They're not going to reoffend. They're going to be doing well. Our tax dollars, it's just smart
it's a
financial
win-win. Our
investment.
society is safer when people's needs are met. When people's needs aren't met, I've not had that opportunity in my life where my needs aren't met. But I can tell you, being a mother, if my kids' needs weren't met, I would do anything to meet those needs, right? So it's we as people, humans, can sit in judgment, or we can work to make just an equitable society for all.
Amen.
Whether that be small children, whether that be people returning from incarceration, whether that be our elderly population that has limited income. I had a sports coach tell me this once, we're only as good as our strongest and weakest player on the team. That's the same thing with our society. So if we've got people struggling to eat, and last night we have people dying, and I wish I was exaggerating, people dying on our streets because of the weather in a city that's going to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks with millions and billions of dollars wrapped up in that is sinful. Every single person in our society in our city should be horrified by that fact. Horrified.
Yeah, it's an incredible challenge for us as human beings, as citizens of a wonderful city, as the Catholic community, and how we can always do more. Our former president, Father Tom Curran, was quite dedicated to the prison system and trying to help those who are incarcerated to get some college education and college degrees. And now he's off, and he is going to try to expand this to other Jesuit universities. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, Kathleen, just start with you, and we'll wind down here, but do you have any thoughts or advice for Rockhurst University as we move forward? And are there any thoughts that you have from when you were here those years ago to today and what we can become?
I think just stress and service is so important. Keep us on your list when you're looking for things to do within the community. And I think we are. We are really fortunate to have Rockhurst students come down at times. Susie knows more of those details than I do, but I know that has taken place. We are grateful for that. Be grateful when you have a place to lay your head at night, and don't ever take anything for granted. And knowing that each day may be your last. And how are you going to go out? I'll tell a quick story. When I was at Bishop Sullivan Center, it was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And one of our stalwart volunteers, close to 80, came in every Tuesday. He came around at the end of the food pantry day and gave us all a hug like she always did. She got in her car and she was hit by a driver who was police were, it was in a chase, and the police were behind her, were behind him, and it was at an intersection about 4 blocks from Bishop Sullivan Center. She was killed instantly. And I remember thinking, we came back in that morning, we're given the news. So it was Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. And we were stunned and then reflected on the fact that her last thing on earth was giving food to people who were hungry at Bishop Sullivan. And I thought, wow, what a way to go. Frances was her name.
Amen.
And so,
God bless Frances. Yeah. Yeah. Susie, what about yourself? You've seen a lot here on Troost Avenue through the years.
And mine is just kind of more of a just call to action for us as a community. None of us are exempt from substance abuse, mental health challenges. Some have a less likely chance of incarceration than others, but if the pandemic taught us anything, people rich and poor died of COVID in the beginning. We didn't know what was going on, and there was some equity in what resources were available for folks receiving treatment. So just kind of that constant fight for equity, and not that we want people to have less, we just want all to have kind of equal. In terms of like Rockhurst University, I think these students here, they have the ones that we have met, we've had some staff from Rockhurst too, just have this justice in their soul. Yeah. And it's kind of part of their DNA. And so that, with that, they're using what they've learned to act in the community. But what Father did with his prison program was remarkable. And he's kind of doing that at other Jesuit universities, but he's using his privilege and power as a priest for good, right? Mm-hmm. And that's Father Don. You've done that all throughout your career. And that's what Sister Berta did, which is not why she stayed in the convent all these years, but she said it was much easier to get things completed when I was fighting with legislators in Jefferson City. I was being Sister Berta versus Berta Saylor, right? So we as clergy, we as folks that have the opportunity to attend a Jesuit university, our call in life isn't higher, but we have this privilege. We must, use it. And as Kathleen mentioned, none of us know what tomorrow brings. And so each day, let's not wait until, this summer I'll make a contribution to Journey to New Life, or I'll start volunteering, or I'll mentor someone. We kind of act today because no day is guaranteed. And so we're really, really grateful to be here. And probably our greatest need as an organization is financial contributions, to be completely honest. And I'm not making a fundraising plea, but volunteers are wonderful. In-kind donations are amazing. What St. Thomas More did for us at Christmas was awesome. We didn't have money to buy individual gifts for our residences. We had 2 of them say that they had never received a Christmas present before. And so, the Christmas morning at the shelters was something that Hallmark couldn't write. It was amazing, right? So, anything helps, because I mentioned in the beginning that our executive director, founder, and accountant died in March. And we have lost some of our federal funds because of a homeless qualifier of our folks coming out of prison aren't considered homeless. So we have lost some of our federal funds. And so as an organization, we have an ongoing Organizational Advancement Committee, where we're raising dollars continually just for operations. And so having 2 residents that are 24/7 is an expensive endeavor, but aren't people worth it? And we're not getting a lot of government funds. So all that is privately raised, or different foundations, or, student groups doing a hygiene drive for us takes off our bottom line, stuff we don't have to buy. So anything helps, but right now our greatest need is fiscal to continue our ministry and our programming.
Well, thank you so much for your passion, your compassion, your willingness to be companions with others that are each of us seeking to know what our role here is on earth, and sometimes getting a second chance, another opportunity. We are in many ways just very, very blessed. We talk about sometimes in the church about journey's end and the journey to new life as being heaven that awaits us all. And yet we also know through the Gospels that Jesus talked about going from this shore to that shore. There are new beginnings. There are new opportunities. This journey to new life is really a journey that is much bigger and greater than what you do each day. And I hope and pray and know that so many wonderful people in Kansas City who are out there listening will want to help out in one way or another. Some can do so in a financial way. Some can do so in other ways. And I think that this will be a great way that Rockers can continue to partner and do our own outreach. And remember what Troost Avenue is all about. As you said, Susie, formerly a symbol of division, and today it's really a symbol of unity in our diversity and a place of hope and possibility.
And not to steal a campaign slogan, but together we are better, right? So it's we're all better together. Something that Sister Helen Pragine said is, she is the big activist, anti-death penalty hero. She is a nun. I've seen her speak all throughout my life, and each time I see her, it's better and better. But she says, all of us are more than the worst thing we've ever done. So when I walked in this room today, I didn't share with you all the worst thing I ever did. No. It's not your business, nor do I want to share it. So a lot of times, another barrier, like our clients have to share potentially the worst thing they've ever done to gain employment, to gain housing, etc. And aren't we all so much more than the worst thing we've ever done? And the last thing is, we do have an execution coming up in Missouri on February 7th. This young man is claiming his innocence, but innocent or not, it's 2023. We are one of 12 states still having executions. We are. It's called a state homicide.
The
legal homicide.
Cause of death on the death certificate is legal homicide, and there's a state or federal execution.
So I have to pay taxes in this state. I'm
not in my name.
I am part of this execution. We all are, and people host vigils. We write letters. But if everyone was as outraged with just like this violence piece, right? Or as outraged with hungry children, or as outraged with the average age of a homeless person in Kansas City is 9, as we were as excited for the Chiefs. And I am a Chiefs fan. I have a son and a husband that are diehard that went nuts on Sunday night. How can we do both as a community? How can we do both? We can.
Well, I think with wonderful people like you, we will try to continue to be better, because we can be better, and our city can be better, our church can be better, everything that we do. So again, thank you so much for being with us, and hopefully we can continue these conversations and perhaps get into some more of the systemic issues and the ways in which the Catholic Church in Kansas City and all people in Kansas City can work together for a greater good.
And we thank you. We are grateful for this opportunity.